Well, hello, everybody. It is Thursday at 3 o'clock, so that must mean what? The Death Chicks. I'm Patty Burgess of doingdeathdifferently.com and teachingtransitions.com, and of course, my wonderful co-host, Misty Lynn from bittersweetblessing.com. And we're excited to be here, and I know lots of people have said to me, why would you be excited about death, dying, grief, and loss? Well, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you why, and I know, Misty, we've shared a lot of this information. I'm excited because there's this opportunity, this amazing opportunity to reframe death, dying, grief, and loss from one of, say, sadness and overwhelm and fear, which is the way, most of us operate when it comes to those topics. The ability to reframe that and kind of transmute that into perhaps connection and meaning and awe. And when we can do that, then this whole experience of death, dying, and grief and loss takes on something very, very different. Almost the gifts of it, like we talked with Jane last week or the week before. It's very, very important, I think, for us to start looking at this as perhaps an opening and an opportunity, because if we don't, it hits us in a way that we're not prepared for, and most of us aren't. And that's going to be the topic of our show today, and why I'm excited, because we've got some amazing information, an amazing guest, and Misty is going to share more and introduce our guest as well. So glad you're here. It is exciting. This is a terrific topic, and smile. It's really okay. We can talk about death and laugh.
Thanks, Patty. That's fabulous. Fabulous. We have Kim Adams here today, and Kim is she's worked as a grief coach. She's a certified and professional coach. She's a hospice volunteer. She's worked in grief counseling for a number of years, and she's recently shifted her focus to work with individuals and families on advanced care planning. And what came to mind for me is why the shift, and more so the question of has she maybe seen people after losing a loved one in poor circumstances where they weren't prepared, and then dealing with the grief after that. Maybe that formed her decision to move into advanced care planning, so that we are ready, and that when the end comes, the decisions have already been made, and it's not like on the spot, good Lord help us, what's going on, and having to make those hard decisions on the reason we do advanced care planning. So Kim's business, I love her business title. It's Powerful You, the letter U, End of Life Coaching. And she focuses on supporting people to create a roadmap now for the final chapter of their life with advanced care planning. Kim's also a host, and that's how we connected. We're hosts, and she's a host. And I think she's going to host the Death Chicks, Patty and I, in January, which will be fabulous. Yeah, so it's a monthly webinar series. It's free, and it's recently gained international attention. And this series is called Vital Conversations, Dialogues on Living and Dying Well. So Kim works one-on-one with individuals and families. She's a sought-after speaker and conference presenter on the topics of grief, loss, end of life, and advanced care planning. Kim brings a heart-centered approach to her work, and this allows people to the space to reflect on what's important to them while living. And we are the Death Chicks. We talk about death and dying, but really at the end of the day, Patty and I are doing this because we love life, and we really think that in order to live life to the fullest, you need to face your fear and face death and accept it and embrace it. And that's what Kim does too. She focuses on what's important to people when they're living, and helps them prepare to the end so that they can both live well and die well. So without further ado, Kim, I'll let you jump in, and if you like, you can answer the question about people, and if you saw that end of life, lack of planning for the end affected grieving after loss.
Great. Well, thank you both, first of all, to Patty and to you, Misty. You know, this is just such an important topic, and I just love opportunities to just really engage and share. So thank you so much for this. Yeah, Misty, in answer to your question, I did start off on the grief end of things, even though, to be really honest, my passion is end of life and working in hospice and helping people through that journey. And actually, I did see a number of people that were grieving because of the fact that, or I should say in addition to other things that were happening, because their loved ones hadn't planned. And in fact, that was my own experience. 21 years ago, my mother-in-law passed away. And so it was a case where 18 months prior to her death, her husband had died. And so, you know, my partner and I, we tried to engage her in conversation about what it is that she wanted. She was very close with her extended family in North Carolina, but yet she lived in New York. And her answer to our questions were, just do whatever you feel like. Just put me wherever.
Wow. Wow.
Fast forward to 1994, 18 months after her husband died, and she had a massive heart attack in her sleep and died, without us knowing the answer to those questions. So not only now were we experiencing the grief and the suddenness of her death, but now we had an added piece of, where does she want to be buried? Because she told us to put her wherever. And so for me, it was, by her not answering that question directly, there might have been some piece of her that really wanted to go to North Carolina with the family, but maybe didn't want to say it and share. You know, how would that look like if she wasn't married with her husband? So it really became obvious to us that, wow, not only is this sudden, oh my gosh, the grief, the loss, the death, but now where are we going to bury her? We didn't need that added piece on top of what we were experiencing. And so, you know, being able to really now encourage people to say, you know what, that would have been such a gift to us if she would have just told us what was important and where she wanted to be buried, for God's sakes. But she didn't. And so we had to wrestle with that decision. I mean, the end of the story is we put her with her husband, and we just said, we hope you're happy, because that's where she went.
Right.
So yes, you know, from the personal experience and also talking more and more, I mean, there's, I think the latest statistic from 2014 is there's 76.4 million baby boomers.
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah, I'm there. We're
And
with
so
them.
being able to say, and a lot of them turned 65 in 2011. So by 2029, all the baby boomers will be 65 or above.
And
so
you can't just put us wherever.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly, Patty.
You have to have some,
You know?
and it's not even just from an organizational standpoint, but yeah, it's really about how someone wants to be cared for at the end, assuming that it's not sudden or it's not tragic. And even then, feeling at a loss as to what to do and how to honor, because those of us who show up who do want to honor folks, that can be very scary, sad, confusing.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's why I encourage people, let's start creating a roadmap, right? You know, you set off on a trip. You just like go to a map and pick a destination. You decide where you want to go. You probably get directions. Maybe you look for places of interest along the way. You decide how long you're going to go visit. So there's some planning involved here. We planned for weddings. We planned for births. You know, to plan, as you know, the three of us know that this is a continuum, and the end of our life is a part of it. Yeah, we can bob along in the sea of life. And, you know, as I like to say, how we live is how we're going to die. So if you bob along the sea of life and just kind of let things happen, well, chances are you may be in a situation where, you know, it's the end of your life and you really don't have a sense of what it is that you want.
Right.
So you're going to get what's given. Go ahead.
There's a nice quote that I see if I can remember it, but it came to mind. If you don't know where you're going, you don't plan for where you're going, you might end up somewhere you don't want to be.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I think people don't you mentioned those three big passages, let's say planning for births and planning for weddings and planning for death. Not that I want to diminish weddings at all, but of the two big life events in terms of birth and death, we really kind of concentrate pretty much on the birth, and the death is sort of this, kind of, I think we plan more for vacations than we do for death.
Yeah. I just read something recently that one of the pieces, especially in the American culture, is it's such about beauty, it's such about being rich, it's such about youthfulness, it's such about immortality that death and dying and end of life and aging don't really have a place for that. We don't see it in the media, we don't, in the culture. And so so much of that is also handed over to the medical community. We see them as the experts, right? And we just say, well, whatever the doctor says,
It's so funny that you say that, because as far as, excuse me, the planning that went into my mother's death, I feel very incredibly grateful that we talked about everything and that I could show up as a daughter, someone who cared and wanted to be with her, rather than at least at that point, a caregiver, or have all of those kinds of sad, confusing kind of emotions at the end. But at the same time, my mother was a very strong person, and because I don't think she had done any pre-planning really, although we did talk about everything when she was when we knew that it was imminent. As a result, when she got her diagnosis, she someone who would really pretty much put a hand up to authority. She just said, well, I guess, I've got this diagnosis. I guess this is what I have to do. So even moving it back up from actual death onto like the trajectory of this whole illness, we tend to give it over to medical community.
We do. We absolutely do. And, and they're more than willing to, jump in and do it. And what I encourage people, especially from the medical, let's talk about kind of the advanced care directives, the medical wishes that we have. If there's nothing in place, the doctors are going to they're going to err on the side of over-treatment. Right. When you present that, people are like, wait, but I don't want A, B, C, D. Oh, okay. So then let's back it up and have those conversations about what it is that you do want. Yeah.
Yeah. Kim, can I just back it up a little bit? Can you give us a definition, or just like, what is advanced care planning and what does it entail? But I love how you said how if we don't do anything, the doctors will perhaps do more than they need to, simply because that's what they're trained to do. They're trained to give as much help as they can. So of course in their profession they use all their tools needed, which maybe some aren't necessary.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they see kind of death, and if they can't cure a disease, as a failure. So advanced care planning is really kind of a big, I like to see it as a roadmap. It's really providing the individual an opportunity to make the decisions about their own health care, their end-of-life planning, even we move into after-death wishes that they have. So to be able to kind of, number one, have a conversation about what that is amongst themselves, about really getting clear on what that is. Number two, putting it in writing. And then number three, sharing that with family, friends, loved ones, and doctors, so that people have a clear sense of what it is that you want. And so that maybe sound, well, that's really easy, to do. There's tons of information online, forums and things, so we can just, download stuff and do it. What tends to happen is that there's a huge chasm between knowing that and actually doing it. Right. And there is a lot of fear. The number one reason people share with me why they have not done it is it's too soon. I'm healthy.
Okay,
I'm young. It's too soon. I don't have a life-limiting illness. I'm not a baby boomer or getting close to, being a little bit older. And so, I love this quote, and I think it was Ellen Goodman from the Conversation Project that said, it's always too soon until it's too late.
Mm. Well, because it sounds like what you're speaking to is those sudden things in life that we can't predict, that we don't know, and I think some of the scariest And most media noteworthy examples are like Karen and Quinlan or Terry Schiavo,
Yes.
where what a horrific battle. And you know, not to say who's right or wrong in this, it's really about what was communicated. And in both of these cases, they were younger women who would have never thought that it was, you know, that it was too soon, or would have thought that it was too soon, and all those kinds of things you just mentioned.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and so helping people to say, you know, Misty, as you said in the very beginning, that's part of your mission as well, is let's help people live well now. So let's get things in order, you know, plan ahead. This is not a one and done conversation, or this is not a written in concrete. This is something to begin to put into place, can be changed, can be modified as needed based on life circumstances. You know, if you're 20-something and you're doing this, well, clearly our hope is that you have a long life, which leads to the assumptive society that we live in. We assume that we're going to grow old. We assume that we're going to retire and then have a nice life. We assume that babies don't die, that they'll grow up. So that's the assumptive world we live in. But helping people to say, you know what, if you begin to put these things in place now, number one, what a gift to yourself. Or if that feels too selfish, and I've had people say that to me, I'd say, give the gift to your family. People love to receive gifts, right? Give it to your family, your loved ones. They don't have to guess.
And I can say for one that was definitely a gift for me, not only through my mother's illness and you know, and after the fact, but I can't even imagine how people cope with all of those decisions when they really don't know. At least in my mother's case, I would call it probably a pretty conscious death and an ability for us to communicate. But that's maybe another thing that happens with families who have been maybe at odds with each other, are you know, having difficulty. All of those things, if we can start to think about it, maybe we can move those relationships into a positive direction and then start those conversations, because it's going to matter.
I totally agree, Patty, and that's a lot of, well, the work I do with people, which is mostly after they've lost a loved one, and that's the hardest, is when there hasn't been resolved before. So that, I think that's a big chunk of anyone who's working with whatever aspect of preparing for death. Having resolve with personal relationships is super large key component. There was something you said earlier, Kim, that kind of piqued my interest. You said, you know, when we're doing the advanced care planning, it's not in stone. However, there are advanced care directives, and I was wondering if you could speak to that and become clear, you know, help our audience become clear about that. And then, does this cost anything? Like, it's a directive? Are there lawyers involved, or can you just write it on a piece of scrap paper and have it post, you know, who knows where? But please speak to that.
Sure. Great question. Yeah, because advanced care planning is kind of the big umbrella. And under that is some of the work that I do way before documents, helping people get clear on beliefs and their values and things that are going to inform us as we move into what's called the advanced care directives, which are more forms and legal documents in some cases. Healthcare proxy, living wills, DNRs, the do not resuscitate. They now have what's called allow natural death, ANRs are available, and wills just in general, and trusts. And so as you move into some of those things, lawyers certainly, wills and trusts and things. What I primarily focus on with folks, once we get clear on what their interests and what their values are and their beliefs and things, there's lots of forms out there. And you can actually just pretty much write down on a piece of paper. That is better than nothing. You know, write down a piece of paper, you know, and just sign it, date it. That's absolutely better than having nothing at all. Back to those forms, there are plenty of living will types of things, which are the medical, you know, what do you want medically at the end of your life? You know, and a lot of times we think, do I want a feeding tube, or do I want a ventilator? Do I want all that? And that alone is very overwhelming for someone to just pick up a form and just start checking those boxes.
Right.
It's made a lot easier when we kind of are in alignment with, our values and our beliefs and things that are important. Those become a lot easier to answer because you say, wow, well, that goes against my belief, or that's not in alignment with what's important to me. So living wills are a big piece, and there's lots of them out there. The big one is that most people use, or I shouldn't say most, a lot of people use is 5 wishes, which, through the Aging Project. It's $5, I think, to have them send it to you. I don't know if they're still doing it, but it has been online for a short time where you can fill it out online and then print it off. So that's one option. There's lots of things that people can fill out almost online, and it's an archive. That's a living will. Healthcare proxy is the person that you designate to make the medical decisions for you when you're no longer able to. And so both of those, the living will and the healthcare proxy, kick in when you're unable to do that, incapacitated. So with a living, oh, sorry, go ahead, Diane.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I think that's a really interesting thing to kind of focus on for just a second. And the reason I bring that up is because it sounds like, oh, okay, I would have, if you're a young person, let's say my mother, my father, or my spouse. And I can tell you that's something that I think even requires a lot more conversation or connection to, does my spouse believe the same way I do? And in my particular scenario, I remember filling out some of these forms and talking with Skip and asking him if he were comfortable with these kinds of duties if he were in that kind of role. And I got a lot of hesitation. So what and to be honest with you, as much as, I think he would want to fulfill my wishes, I don't want to leave it at that if he really hasn't had as in-depth a conversation with me as I would like. So what I said to him, and I don't know if he was that thrilled about it to start, but I said, listen, I'm going to have you and another dear friend of mine who really understands what I want, and I think that it would be kind of like a team effort so that he isn't going it alone, and B, I can be assured that I get the kind of care that I want. So it was a very interesting conversation, and not even still at this point resolved. So when we think of just picking somebody, it's not as easy as it seems. You have to really think about that person and how they will fulfill what you're asking. Do you ever come across couples like that? Or
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because people, and I love the team approach that you speak about, because, yeah, we just think, oh, so-and-so will do it. And so what you speak about is the ongoing conversation even, making sure that the person is comfortable and is clear, and maybe you need to choose someone else or have a team approach like what you're doing. So frequently, because we think, well, this is what I want, they're going to do it.
Yeah, and what I want is, if there's really no hope, I would be like, please pull me. I want to go on to my next adventure, and I want to jettison to my next adventure where, I think he would kind of want me hanging around, or with the hope or the possibility or the miracle, like in movies, that I would wake up. But
and it's interesting because depending on your relationship with your loved one, I mean, some would want to be there and fully support you and do all they can, while others may just want to not have anything to do with that, because it's a very interesting and intimate and never done before way to interact, and given that their deepest loved one is dying, to have to face these maybe technical and clinical and all these questions that they've never been asked before or never considered, or even if they had, it might just be like, I don't really want to go there. I don't really want to have that responsibility. So I love the idea of, it doesn't have to necessarily be your right hand man or your left hand woman, whatever, your closest loved one. So it's kind of broadening the circle and those are, and there may be someone in your family that you don't know that would be like, yeah, I would love to do that and be there for you, and they may be the perfect one.
And to the opposite side of that point is, people may be very well intended, and you might find yourself in a situation without any advanced plannings or very specific instructions, where your life is prolonged, and there could be some. I don't want to scare anybody, but there could be some agony involved.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not what you had planned or wanted, and somebody who still is very well intentioned, wants to do something that feels more like how they would handle it. So
right, it's very complicated, because you bring up some excellent points. I've had a lot of times people say, you know what, I'm choosing, my friend Susie to be my healthcare proxy, but I don't want to tell her about it right now. So there's been times where people are actually surprised, and they're like, what? I didn't know that they chose me, or...
Oh, my gosh.
And so, talk about being in the situation to, number one, my gosh, the suddenness of, now I need to make these decisions. What would they want? I don't know if I'm comfortable. What do I want? So it can get really... And to Misty's point, too, a lot of times within families, depending if, let's just say a sibling, or I should say a child or a parent, they're at odds with each other because, I've been designated the healthcare proxy, but my brother and sister have different thoughts about, so there's the family dynamic, and there's opportunities for those conversations, to do it. I mean, one statistic, 9 out of 10 people do not want to die in a hospital or an assisted living facility, but only 25% of people have done any end-of-life planning
to make that possible.
I mean, that's huge. If this is what we're doing, and it's a fear that hopefully we're, the three of us being able to talk about death and dying and normalize it, and it's a part of life, that more people say, oh, yeah, let's consider it.
Yeah. Well, as we were talking about someone not being, someone being made the healthcare proxy and not having that shared with them, it makes me think of when parents or new parents are thinking about, God forbid anything should happen to them, they think about who would take care of their children, and that's a huge decision. Many times people are talking that over with the people that they're talking about having to help them raise their kids if they go, but that whole conversation is about the kids and nothing about what about them when they go.
Right.
And there's all that piece too. So again, death gets a bad rap. I don't know what I don't understand, but I do. I understand it's all fear, or the very thing that you shared, which is we're an assumptive society and we assume. Yeah. And I know this to be the case. So some people get hit over the head with these kinds of events and situations, and it's so sad. And other people who plan and can't even really plan for everything, for every contingency.
Right.
Yeah. It shocks me how shocked people are sometimes when, not all the times, but when people die. And I think that's kind of the reason why I'm here, and why I'm a death chick, and why I'm talking about this, because and Patty says, hey, no one's getting out of here alive. And for some reason, we walk around with these blinders on and just pretend it won't happen. And if people bring it up, we lower our eyes, and it's all fascinating. And I think that's why it's so important to have these conversations. I'm going to have to mute out because my dog's yipping away. But we're almost ready to wrap up. And Kim, I'm wondering, I'm wanting to share with our viewers more about your free monthly webinar series. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Thank you for that. Yes, I started back in January of this year to really just create a space, a forum, an open, safe space for people to kind of, if they, I really don't like this word, but kind of lurk. They have an opportunity,
I love that word.
Right? To just kind of hear about various topics around death and dying and end of life and advanced care planning, and just various topics from different perspectives. So I bring a guest on once a month. We've had they're free for an hour. Anything from a hospice physician talking about what she's learned from her patients at the end of life, to home funeral guides and planning a home funeral, to the local hospice and palliative care coordination executive director, talking about hospice. And so just trying to bring a variety of topics in. I had someone speak about grief and loss, and actually next week my next webinar is with someone who was told 14 years ago by the doctors, there's nothing more we can do to cure your cancer. And so she just really took it upon herself to do some inner work and find the essence of who she was. And, you know, so we'll be talking about that next week.
Wow.
And grief around, you know, what she did and how she's now, 14 years later, fully healed. But how that was a wake-up call for her. You know, death being at her doorstep, so to speak. So, yeah, I just offer various topics. Next month, November, is National Caregiver Awareness Month. So I'll be talking about, I'll have a caregiver coach on. We'll be talking about the caregiver journey. So just a variety of topics. And, yeah, I've now gained people from around the world, similar to, you know, the Death Chicks here. Being on the webinar, it has the opportunity for people to watch and tune in and engage from wherever they are on their computers or their cell phones. So it's become international, and engagement is just phenomenal. You know, I've had people share that they've had loss. I mean, because we have a chat function, people have shared that they have lost a loved one, so there's engagement with people supporting one another. So it's become a nice supportive community, and people come and go. So it's just really another forum similar to what you guys do here, which is just beautiful. And the more of us that can get this information out and normalize it, I think the better. So, yeah,
I think this death thing is catching on, don't you think?
I think it is. I think so. It's great.
I love that. I love that. When we, you know, when we first got into this, Misty and I, we were kind of like looking around, lurking, so to speak.
Yes.
Just, is anybody else doing this thing? And then you meet these really cool people in this space who are so full of heart, like you are, Kim, and so willing to share. And I have such a kinship with you from the hospice volunteer side, because that's how I got my start, you know, losing a dear friend. Then was introduced to hospice, became a hospice volunteer, then a trainer, and working in the hospice community. And you know what I love about the hospice community? It's probably the only job where you can cry, laugh, and hug and not be fired. You know,
Right.
where you can look a little crazy and you can kind of weep around because you just lost somebody, and people actually want to be like, "Are you okay?" They're not like, "Oh my gosh, get her out of here."
Yes.
So
yes.
it's nice to know that you are out there and doing this terrific work, and we really, really honor that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
And be sure to post your information of how to tune into your live shows in the comment stream. We have a few live viewers today, but there's people view us after the fact on YouTube. So if your information's in the comment stream, if they come to the show, then they can just see that link and click over, and then they'll have you in their little database of helpers too. So thank you so much for coming. I'm looking forward to being on your show in January. That's very exciting. And before we leave, what would you like to share with the viewers, or where would you like to direct them, or what's your kind of parting words?
Sure. Well, thank you. Yeah, certainly there's lots of information and resources on my website, www.yourgriefandlosscoach.com. And I'm happy to chat with anyone. You can get in touch with me via email at kim@yourgriefandlosscoach.com. And actually, I have, if anyone's interested and wants to email me, I have a resource page that I have kind of condensed. There's a lot of resources on the website, but specifically around advanced care and what's available on the website, or I should say on the internet, I've kind of condensed down into some top things that if people are interested, just pop me an email and I'm happy to forward that information along. You know, and some people just take it and run with it, and others say, you know what, let's walk through it, and others need to back way up and say, you know what, I'm not even clear on, let's begin to have a conversation. I don't even know what's important to me now. And others say, wow, I've done this much, and now I need to share this with my family. Help me have a conversation, because I have siblings that are going to be all over the place. So I kind of work around the gamut, but you know, those resources I think are helpful, at least as a starting point for people.
oh, beautiful. And since there is so much out there, it's great that you've kind of condensed it down, because sometimes it can, just the overwhelm itself can be a tough starter for someone. considering having these conversations.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
Well, good. Misty, what's going on for you?
Let's see. I'm opening up a few coaching spaces. So if you're interested, you can email me at misty@bittersweetblessing.com. And this month I'm offering free. It's not really a consultation. It's more a conversation to see if we're a good fit. If you'd like to work on moving forward, if you're feeling stuck, I specialize in overcoming fear and releasing guilt, and just finding that inner place inside where you really feel like you shine, and when you connect with this place, you're much better able to move forward. So that's what I'm offering today and for this month, and yeah, everything else is coming along tickety-boo, so I'll pass it over to you, Patty.
Sounds good. Tickety-boo. That's a good one.
Like that.
I do. It sounds rather Arctic, I think. I don't know. So what I'd love to offer for everybody is at doingdeathdifferently.com, on that particular website, there is an ebook, which is the 6 Steps to Master While Supporting a Loved One Who is Dying. And I think it's a kind of ebook that can help people who are helping others who are facing either terminal diagnosis or end of life is imminent. How to actually be, and I say that B-E with a capital B-E, be with the dying. And it's less so about the things you do than it is your presence and how important that really is. And you can find out more when you get that ebook. And you can get a very similar ebook at teachingtransitions.com. When death, gosh, I don't even know the name of it at that site. What to expect when death comes. There you go. I'm all over the place. But the concept is how to be with a dying, how to share your presence, which is most important, and we don't need to know what to say, what to do, or fill any spaces. Just your presence is the greatest gift ever. So anyway, I think that wraps us up. I will take us off the air right now. I want to thank you again, Kim, for stopping by. Great show, great information, and make sure everybody goes to get more information from Kim at her website. We have that website, which is yourgriefandlosscoach.com, and that is in the show notes there. So, all right, we'll talk to everybody soon. We'll see you next week, and we'll also be talking a little bit more next week about advanced planning and even how to have that conversation. We'll be working with Jethro Heiko, who is the CEO of Common Practice, and their game, My Gift of Grace, has gotten international reviews and is used by many hospices and lots of other healthcare agencies as to how to start those conversations and start them with a lot of laughter and connection, which I think is always a great way to start. Sounds like you know of their game.
Yeah, I just actually ordered it last night, so I can't wait to get it.
Oh, good.
Yes,
It's wonderful. I've played it in lots of different.
Perfect.
Great.
Well, Kim, just knowing that if you're available next week, if we have time and if things go well, we might take jumpers. So if people are interested in coming into the hangout and answering some questions in the mock, which is what it's all about, and just as a snippet, one of the questions is, if it came to it, who would you like to take you to the bathroom? And who wouldn't you like to? So these are the kind of things that you're like, oh, well, geez, I never thought about that. But my goodness, if it came to that, I would want them to know. So anyhow, if you feel like joining us next week and getting, maybe we'll do a mock game live, who knows, but please do.
Great.
So thanks, everyone.
Very good.
Thank you so much, both of you. Appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Yeah, we'd love to have you. It'll be great to be able to play the game on air and give people an idea. So, all right. Take good care, everybody. This is the Death Chicks signing off, and we will see you next week. Take good care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.